the series we've entitled The Unknowns, and we're looking at some of the folks in the Bible you may have never heard of before, or you just don't remember reading about. Right? As much as we love people like Abraham and Moses and David and Paul and Peter, we tend to forget all the other people that God used to show his love to the world. Right? People who never saw a burning bush. People who never gave birth to a great nation. People who never fought a giant. People who never started the Christian church. People whose shadow never healed anyone like Peter's. Right? The Bible is full of people who may get a mention in only one or two verses, but who can still teach us a lot about being faithful. I mean, let's just be honest. There's a very good chance that none of us are going to be the next Moses or the next Paul. But we can be the next Jabez or the next Onesiphorus. All right, pronounced it right this week. All right, you weren't here last week. That just became Mr. O. All right. But those are two guys that we talked about in the first 2 weeks of the series. You can find those sermons online. Go to our website, Gathered ATL, and you'll see them there. But I want to change it up today by looking at a couple of strong women. Right? The Bible was written during a very patriarchal time, but there are some amazing women in the Bible. A couple of months ago, we did an entire series all about Ruth. You may remember that. But today we're going to look at two women who chose to do the right thing, even though it meant standing up to the most powerful man on the planet. We're going to be in the first chapter of Exodus, so you can grab your Bible or your phone. Exodus, which is the second book of the Bible. And as you turn there, Exodus chapter 1, as you turn there, I want to ask you a question. What is the bravest thing you have ever done? What's the bravest thing you have ever done? It doesn't have to be something epic, right? It doesn't have to be some big epic thing. It can be as simple as getting out of your nice warm bed to go check on what just went bump in the night, right? Lean does that all the time in our house. It's only because her side of the bed is next to the door, all right? That's the only, I would get up. It's just more convenient for her to do it. But maybe that's the bravest thing you've ever done, is you go check on the bump in the house, right? That's okay, all right? Or maybe you ran into a burning building and saved 10 orphans. I don't know, but it's not nice to brag, all right? But what is it for you? What is it? What is the bravest thing you've ever done? When I was in my 20s, a bunch of buddies and I, we used to go on canoe trips every December, because there was not a lot of people on the water in December. So we'd go on canoe trips. My favorite canoe trip was down to the Okefenokee Swamp in South Georgia. And over the course of, I think, 4 days, we did about 30 miles. And there's these platforms that got built up in the swamp that you can camp on. But one night, we stayed on Bear Island. It's not a great name for an island, but it's Bear Island. There's a nice cabin there. There's a fire pit. And so we got to Bear Island, and we set up camp. We got everything settled. We were sitting around the campfire. And as soon as we got settled, one of the guys in our group decided he was going to go off on a hike, right? And so he went hiking by himself. Now, the sun was still up, so we weren't too concerned about it. But then the sun started to go back down, and he was not back yet. And as folks started making their way to bed that night, he had still not come back. And, of course, everyone was saying, don't worry about it. He's going to be fine. He'll be fine. But I and another guy, we refused to go to bed until he was back. So eventually, me and this other guy, we walked to the edge of the swamp, and we started yelling this guy's name. And we would yell, and we would yell, and we didn't hear anything. And then finally, we heard a very faint, help. And so we just started taking off running. We just ran straight into the swamp. We would stop every few yards, and we would yell his name, and we'd listen more. And we kept hearing help. And we would just run to where we thought the sound was coming from. Now, eventually, we saw him running towards us. And we got him, and we got out of the swamp. And praise God, everybody was okay. All I wanted to do was just punch him as hard as I could. Because I thought, how stupid can someone be to go off into the swamp all by himself? But then I started thinking about what we had just done. We just decided to start running through the swamp with muck up to our knees and a swamp full of alligators in the middle of the night. I didn't care, right? Because a guy needed saving. He had climbed up into a tree. He got lost, climbed up into a tree to try to get his voice to travel a little bit farther. Praise God, we got him back. What's the bravest thing you've ever done. Maybe you have a story like that, right? Some action-packed story that you love to tell. But for some of you, maybe the bravest thing you've ever done was never witnessed by anyone else. For others, maybe the fact you got out of bed this morning was an act of courage on your part. The two women we're going to look at today, they didn't fight any giants. They didn't part a sea. They simply defied an order given to them by the most powerful man on the planet. So look at Exodus chapter 1, starting in verse 15. It says, Then Pharaoh, the king of Egypt, gave this order to the Hebrew midwives, Shiphrah and Puah. When you help the Hebrew women as they give birth, watch as they deliver. If the baby is a boy, kill him. If it is a girl, let her live. But because the midwives feared God, they refused to obey the king's orders. They allowed the boys to live too. So the king of Egypt called for the midwives. Why have you done this, he demanded. Why have you allowed the boys to live? The Hebrew women are not like the Egyptian women, the midwives replied. They are more vigorous, and they have their babies so quickly that we cannot get there in time. So God was good to the midwives, and the Israelites continued to multiply, growing more and more powerful. And because the midwives feared God, he gave them families of their own. Now, the most powerful man on the planet at that time was Pharaoh, the king of Egypt. And Pharaoh, he had a problem. He had a Hebrew problem. Just before this passage, Pharaoh is quoted as saying, Look, the Israelites have become much too numerous for us. Come, we must deal shrewdly with them, or they will become even more numerous. And if war breaks out, we'll join our enemies, fight against us, and leave the country. For Pharaoh, Pharaoh had a Hebrew problem. And the only solution he could think of was to kill all the male Hebrew babies. That did two things for him. One, it would have prevented a generation of fighting men. It also would have prevented reproduction. And so for Pharaoh, the ends justified the means. I mean, sure, it was horrible, but it solved the problem. And so he told Shiphrah and Puah, two midwives, to take care of it. Just for a moment, put yourself in their shoes. Right here are two women whose job is to bring life into the world. That's their only job. Make sure that the mothers are able to safely deliver their children. So imagine that your call in life was to bring about life, but then you're told to kill. And not told by just anyone, right? But you're instructed to kill babies by the one person who can have you killed and your entire family killed. This was a situation in which these two ladies found themselves. It was a command to go against everything they knew to be right. And it's easy for us to think that we would do the same thing, right? Right? If our boss told us to go down to the hospital and make sure all the male babies didn't survive, I'm guessing and hoping you would say no, right? But it's easy for us to say that because we know there's no chance of our boss telling us to do that. And so what about a less extreme example? Are we willing to do the right thing no matter the situation? See, that's what courage is, church. Doing the right thing no matter what. And you probably know this, but courage is in low supply today. Because for most people, the goal in life is simply to be comfortable. Right? Being comfortable does not require any courage. In fact, a comfortable life is often the product of choosing to not do the brave thing. Right? We are told to not rock the boat. Don't upset people. Don't cause a scene. Just try to fit in. You just do you and let everyone else do whatever they want to do. Just don't rock the boat. And so we adopt the live and let live approach to life. Keep your head down, and if you're lucky, you'll make it through this life okay. We have too many people who refuse to rock the boat, even though they worship a guy who rocked the boat so much that they crucified him. See, they didn't crucify Jesus because he tried to fit in. They didn't crucify Jesus because he didn't try to rock the boat. They crucified him because he was faithful to God's will. Shiphrah and Puah disagreed with Pharaoh's orders, disregarded Pharaoh's orders, because his order conflicted with God's will. In his prayer that he taught us to pray, that we know as the Lord's Prayer, there's a line that Jesus prayed that said, "Your kingdom come, your will be done on earth as it is in heaven." Now, I don't know how we bring the kingdom of heaven down to earth if we aren't willing to rock a few boats. And yet that's exactly what many of us try to do, right? We say we want to be faithful, but what we really mean is I'm faithful when it's convenient. Or I'm faithful as long as I don't have to go against what everyone else is doing or what everyone else is saying. Church, Jesus prayed that prayer because God's will was not being done here on earth. Which means if we're going to do what we can to bring about God's will here on earth, then all the other wills being done, they have to stop. And in case you haven't figured this out yet, that will typically lead to upsetting a few folks. If God's will is to be established here, that means our kingdom must fall. If God's will is to be done here, it means our will must be put down. If God's will is to be done here, it means we must embrace it no matter what. And that, church, takes courage because we are constantly coming into contact with the will of others and the will of this fallen world. Pharaoh's will was not God's will. And so Shiphrah and Puah had a choice to make. Submit to Pharaoh or submit to God. You see, church, this is a binary choice. Submit to our will or submit to God's will. That is the choice before every single one of us every single day. Submit to our will or submit to God's will. If you've read the Old Testament, you know there's this term that's thrown around in the Old Testament, the fear of the Lord or the fear of God. Fearing God is an important Old Testament concept. It refers to honor and reverence towards God. Look at what Deuteronomy 10:12 says. "And now, Israel, what does the Lord your God require of you? He requires only that you fear the Lord your God and live in a way that pleases him and love him and serve him with all your heart and soul." And then Ecclesiastes 12:13 says, that's the whole story. Here now is my final conclusion. Fear God and obey his commands, for this is everyone's duty. You see, all faithfulness, church, all faithfulness comes from this fear or honoring of God. And it takes great courage to be faithful. So let's look at it practically. Most of you have a boss. What if your employer wants you to lie so that her department looks better than the other departments in the company? What if the boss wants you to exploit your customers in order to make more profit? What if the supervisor wants us to play unnatural political games so that he might more effectively climb the corporate ladder? What if in order to keep our job, we must do something that is clearly unbiblical? Or for the young people in the room, what if in order to fit in, you must do something you know goes against the will of God? Again, I get it. We want to fit in, right? We want to be accepted. We want to be comfortable. But I don't know how we choose to be comfortable and choose to be faithful. I'm not sure how this lie got such a strong foothold in the church today. I have read the Bible, and nowhere in it does it promise us a comfortable life on this side of eternity. Again, all you have to do is look at Jesus, God in the flesh. If his life was tough, what makes you think your life won't be? Doing the will of God will lead you into very uncomfortable places. It did for Jesus, and it will for you. Right before Jesus began his ministry, he spent 40 days praying and fasting in the wilderness. At the end of those 40 days, the devil came to him to tempt him. Now I want you to look at Luke chapter 4, starting in verse 5. It says, the devil led him up to a high place and showed him in an instant all the kingdoms of the world. And he said to Jesus, I will give you all their authority and splendor. It has been given to me, and I can give it to anyone I want to. If you worship me, it will all be yours. And Jesus answered, it is written, Worship the Lord your God and serve him only. Understand what's happening here. Here was the devil basically offering Jesus what Jesus wanted. Jesus had come to earth to establish the kingdom of heaven, God's kingdom. And here was the devil offering to give Jesus authority over the world's systems without him having to die on the cross. Right? In a way, it would have accomplished exactly what Jesus wanted. Right? And plus, this way, Jesus didn't have to die. He wouldn't have to suffer. He wouldn't have to hurt. He wouldn't have to be tortured. He wouldn't have to be ridiculed. He wouldn't have to be spat upon. However, it would have bypassed the will of God. That's why Jesus answered, it's written, worship the Lord your God and serve him only. You see, church, it is a binary choice. It's God's will or our will. And that rubs us the wrong way. We don't like that. The word binary has become one of the most hated words in our society. Right? There must be more than two choices. We cannot be expected to deny our wants and our desires. I just don't know how else to say this. We cannot serve God and man at the same time. We cannot serve God and man at the same time. But hear me, to actually serve God requires great courage. Something that's missing in the lives of quite a few Jesus followers. We trade the goodness to come for comfort now. And while the Church of Jesus Christ chases after comfort, more lives are eternally lost. Last week I quoted the old song, This Little Light of Mine. You know, the second verse is, hide it under a bushel, no, I'm going to let it shine. Hide it under a bushel, no, I'm going to let it shine, let it shine, let it shine. We will sing that all day long, right? It's a great sing-along song. We sing it loud. We like the song. But if getting the light out from under a bushel requires us to be uncomfortable, well, I guess that light is staying exactly where it is, right? In the church I grew up in, there was an old-timer named Scott. And Scott had an answer machine that said, okay, for the young people, answer machines were a machine that was hooked up to your phone. If you weren't home, the phone would ring a couple times, and the answering machine would pick up, and you could leave a message on the tape. It would be recorded on a tape. A tape is this little thing. Okay, ask your parents. But he had an answer machine, and his message on the answer machine was, you have reached Scott Shamley. I can't reach the phone from where I'm sitting. Leave a message. That's how some of us treat our walk with Jesus. As long as Jesus doesn't ask us to do anything that puts us in direct opposition to anyone or anything else, then we are all in. As long as Jesus doesn't ask me to leave where I am right now, then I'm all in, right? But as soon as it gets uncomfortable, as soon as we have to stand up for Jesus, as soon as we have to declare that something is wrong, no thank you. Right? We want the Jesus who raises people from the dead. We want the Jesus who turns water into wine. We want the Jesus who feeds the hungry. We want the Jesus who hangs out with the sinners. We don't want the Jesus who points out sin. We don't want the Jesus who rebukes lukewarm Christianity. We don't want the Jesus who calls us to die to ourselves. We don't want to suffer. We don't want to be uncomfortable. We don't want to be mocked. We don't want to be called names. We don't want to be uninvited to the parties. We want the world instead of Jesus. We're choosing to keep the light of Christ under a bushel because taking it out just might disrupt our lives. Shiphrah and Puah put their lives on the line and the lives of their families on the line in order to be faithful. And we won't even put our reputation on the line. We're not even going to put our wealth on the line or our job on the line or our comfort on the line. And while we chase after comfort, the world around us burns. Church, at some point, the Church of Jesus Christ is going to have to become, once again, the Church of Jesus Christ. We as Christians must choose the way of Jesus. It's not Jesus and, it's just Jesus. And living that way might cost you some friends. Living that way might cost you your job. Living that way might cost you a promotion. It might cost you some popularity. And all I have to say to that is, so be it. I'm serious, church. So be it. They crucified Jesus. Becoming a follower of Jesus Christ means you are willing to be a martyr. Now hear me very clearly. I don't believe any martyr wants to be a martyr, all right? No one wants to be persecuted. No one wants to be treated poorly. However, we must be willing to be a martyr. We must be willing to die for the sake of the kingdom of God. Shiphrah and Puah were willing to die for what was right. And look how God responded in Exodus chapter 1, verse 20. So God was good to the midwives, and the Israelites continued to multiply, growing more and more powerful. And if you keep reading, it says that they were able to have their own children. Now, see, midwives were midwives because they weren't able to have children of their own. So after this act, God blessed them with children of their own. That small act of defiance led to the goodness of God being poured out on Shiphrah and Puah, but it didn't stop there. That small act of defiance led to the goodness of God being poured out on all the Hebrew people. You see, our faithfulness to Jesus not only blesses us, but it also blesses all the people around us. How? Because it is our faithfulness that brings the kingdom of God to earth. Our faithfulness to God at the office, our faithfulness to God at school or at home, this is how the kingdom of God comes to earth. Your kingdom come. Your will be done on earth as is in heaven. If that is our true desire, then we have to accept we're going to have to stand in opposition to anything that is not the will of God. Is that your true desire? We may have to say no to our boss. We may have to say no to our friends. We may have to speak against the ways of our culture. Your kingdom come. Your will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Is that your true desire? Are you willing to be like Shiphrah and Puah and be faithful no matter what? Are you willing to sacrifice your job? Are you willing to sacrifice your popularity? Are you willing to sacrifice your position? Are you willing to sacrifice your life? Your kingdom come, your will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Is that your true desire? If it is, then the rest of the Lord's Prayer tells us how to live that out. Jesus said, give us this day our daily bread. It's daily dependence on Him. We aren't out there trying to do whatever we have to do in order to get what we want. Instead, we just rely on Him daily. We look to Him and allow Him alone to fulfill our needs. Forgive our debts as we also have forgiven our debtors. We have to acknowledge that we are sinful people. That alone is going to set you apart from most people. You admit that not everything is perfect in your life, and you repent. But you also forgive others. You have grace for others. Again, something that's seriously lacking in our world today. Lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from the evil one. The temptation to be comfortable is going to continue. And so every single day, we have to pray for the strength to remain faithful to the will of God. It is getting more and more difficult to stand on the authority of Scripture. It is very tempting to try to water down Scripture so that we can fit in. That is the work of Satan in our churches. We have to pray against that temptation every single day. This is how we live with the fear of the Lord. But are we willing? Are we willing? I want you to answer that question today, not to me, but to Jesus. Are we willing to be like Shiphrah and Puah and say no when something goes against the will of God? In a moment, we're going to read or pray the Lord's Prayer together. As some of you know right now, you have tried to fit in over being faithful. Some of you know that you have chosen comfort over being faithful. Some of you know you've chased after wealth or being faithful. You know today that God's got something else for you, but that was too scary. That was too big of a request by God. And so you've chosen comfort over being faithful. You went along with the crowd instead of saying no. You began to sleep around because you wanted to fit in. You began to do drugs or drink because you wanted to fit in. You began looking at pornography, whatever it is, instead of just saying, no, I'm going to be faithful. I'm going to be honest with you, this is not my sermon, forgive me, but I struggle with this sermon. Liam will tell you. I didn't finish the sermon until late last night. Because I just couldn't get it. I was just wrestling with it. And I think the issue is Christians are so weak today. We're so weak today. We lack such courage today. And I struggle with saying that. Because I didn't want to offend anyone. I don't want to make this a political church. But I'm sorry. I watch enough of the news. I listen to enough podcasts to know that the Church of Jesus Christ is not brave anymore. We lack courage to stand up for the will of God and say no. And as long as we continue to do that, this world will only get worse. I'm around Christians all the time who just complain. They complain and they complain about the state of the world that we live in. And I want to ask, what are you doing? Are you saying no in your own life? Are you standing up for the gospel in your own life? Not in some big epic way. I'm not asking you to go to a street corner with a sign that says the end is near. I'm talking about in your everyday life. When everybody wants to go out to the bars after work, are you saying, no, I'm going home? Or in school, when everybody wants to do that thing that you know is wrong, are you saying no? Are we willing to be faithful, no matter what? If you are, and you want to make a change today, I want to invite you to pray this prayer. I want you to make it your prayer. I want you to make it your desire today. Today we are stating there is the way of the world, and then there's the way of Jesus. And we're going to choose the way of Jesus. Again, it's not Jesus and something else. Today we want Jesus and Jesus alone. No matter what, no matter the cost. We want Jesus alone because we want Jesus alone to be glorified. Is that what you want, church? If so, pray this prayer with me. Put it up there, Elijah. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, and the power, and the glory forever. Amen. Let's pray. Gracious Heavenly Father, I thank you, Lord, that you want your will to be done here on earth. You don't just sit up in heaven and go, oh, it's great up here. Great up here. Wait till y'all get up here. No, you want to bring it here. You want your kingdom to come here, Lord. And I thank you for that. Lord, I ask you to forgive me. Forgive me, Lord, for those times where I have chosen my own comfort over doing what's right. I've chosen to do what I wanted to do instead of standing up for you. Forgive me, Lord, for not having the courage of Shiphrah and Puah sometimes. And maybe I'm not alone in that. Maybe there's others in this room today who know they have lacked the courage to be faithful to you. They've given in to temptation. They've gone with the crowds. They've accepted lies for truth because culture says it's truth. Forgive us, Lord. Lord, forgive your church. Forgive your church for not having courage to just stand on your word. Forgive us, Lord, for fearing ugly words. Forgive us, Lord, for fearing cancellation. Forgive us, Lord, for fearing being rebuked or being kicked out of social circles. Forgive us. Lord, today let us choose to make a stand. Say, from this moment on, I'm going to be faithful no matter what. But Lord, what I love about you is you tell us to be courageous. But you don't just say be courageous. That when you told Joshua to go into the promised land, and there's giants, all these things there, you didn't just say go and be courageous, Joshua. What you said was go and be courageous because I'm going to go with you. I'm going to be with you. So Lord, we don't stand on faith by ourselves. We stand with you. And so Holy Spirit, give us the strength and the courage to stand. Give us the strength and the courage to not back down. Give us the strength and the courage to say no when we need to say no. Give us the courage and the strength to show grace and mercy when we need to show grace and mercy. Let us decide today it's all for you or it's a waste of time. So Lord, help us this week. Help us this week to be strong and courageous. In Jesus' name, amen. Let's stand, let's worship.